everyone, and welcome to this Telit Cinterion webinar, Connected Product Certification, Everything You Need to Know. I'm Amanda Flink, the head of global events here at Telit, and I'll be moderating today's event. To explain this topic today, I'm pleased to be joined by two speakers, Brad Schroeder and Melissa Hernandez, both customer program managers here at Telit Cinterion. Now, just before I hand it over to Brad to start our presentation, I've got just a few quick reminders for our audience. I'd like to remind you that we do have time to answer some questions at the end of the presentation. You can simply submit a question by posting in the questions box located near the bottom of your screen. Also, please be sure to check out the resources section for some additional information. There you can find today's slide deck and some other resources. And finally, we will send out this replay link to all attendees at the conclusion of the webinar. And with that, Brad, I will hand it over to you to start our presentation.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Hello, this is Brad Schroeder. As Amanda said, I'm a customer program manager here at Telit Cinterion, and we would like to discuss how to accelerate your IoT integration, and we're focusing on product certification topics. Here's our agenda that we'll be covering, essentially three different areas: Telit pre-certification support. We're going to cover the basic regulatory, industrial, and MNO approvals that you will be concerned with your products as you take them to market. And then lastly, how to plan your certifications for a successful go-to market launch. So adding wireless technology always adds complexity to a product design. You have things to consider like RF performance, power consumption, the system architecture, and certifications. And all these have to be taken account into during the design process. So these are some of the areas we see the most support needed by our customers using our modules. So we recommend avoiding costly revisions and delays by working with Telit early on in your design process. So as I said before, this is why we want to cover certifications. So on this next slide here, you can see we've broken this presentation into three pieces: testing and pre-certification, the certifications, and then a go-to-market strategy. We will assist you from the beginning of your design and development to a market launch and beyond. So let's go ahead and look at pre-certification, the pre-certification topic. So at Telit Cinterion, we have pre-certification facilities in Italy and in the U.S. Pre-certification testing really provides an overview of your application's radio performance. And this early testing that we're recommending exposes potential issues, giving you the opportunity to fix your problems before experiencing fees and schedule delays in the formal process. So this service is a no-cost service to our customers. It prepares you for both regulatory and industrial certifications. The lab lead time is typically about 1 month. So if you're interested in this service, please contact us early in your process so that we can get needed information from you and schedule it with our labs. The time needed depends on the test scope, so it depends on the scope of your product. We usually recommend or request customers to provide 2 devices that have direct USB communication with the modem so that we can complete the tests. So on the right here, you can sort of see the types of testing that we offer. We offer radiated spurious emissions and conducted RSE testing for 3GPP and FCC standards. We also support OTA measurements for TRP and TIS, and also OTA measurements for FR2 millimeter wave for your 5G products. We also can assist with passive antenna measurements to measure antenna efficiency. Okay, let's take a look at some of the facilities that we do have. On this slide here, we have the Italy lab anechoic chambers. So we have an anechoic chamber for RSE and conducted RSE up to 12.75 gigahertz. These are tested with the CMW 500 in this chamber according to 3GPP and FCC standards. We also have an OTA anechoic chamber, 700 megahertz to 6 gig for OTA measurements. And we have the capability to test various types of devices with various types of Telit modules, including Cat-M1, NB-IoT, and all the way up to 5G FR1 products. And we also now have a compact antenna test range chamber for FR2 testing, for millimeter wave testing, if you have that capability on your 5G device. Okay, and then next let's look at the U.S. lab facility briefly. So at our Bellevue lab facility in the U.S., we also have capabilities to execute OTA testing to assist you with your product's LTE pre-cert testing. So this is a Roden-Schwartz TS8991 test system. The system includes a CMW 500, a signal analyzer, an RNS open switch and control unit. And the system is controlled by RNS system software, so we can support both automated and manual testing for TRP, TIS, OTA measurements. So this is a good option if you have an LTE product and you're in the North American market. It's another alternative to our facility in Italy. Okay, so after the testing activities are completed, we provide reports and feedback on the status of the design based on the scope of the pre-certification testing. This can be used by yourself to analyze the quality of your design, identify your strengths and weaknesses in the design, the board layout, the components used, the antennas. So if you are a Telit Cinterion customer and you are interested in this service, please contact your Telit regional sales director. And again, we just ask that you plan for this early. So please contact us early in your design process so we can discuss options with you. All right, so that's the first section of our webinar in terms of the pre-certification capabilities that we offer at Telit Cinterion. So next, let's look at kind of the second topic, which is the different types of certifications that you will experience that you need to plan for. So the first one is regulatory testing, and regulatory testing is there to enforce communication laws and regulations within the country where the device is deployed. So, for example, in the U.S., it's FCC. In Canada, it's ISED. IFTEL in Mexico, Anatel in Brazil, RED in the EU. So each country or region will have different regulatory requirements. Some of them are quite similar. Some use other. We'll reference FCC, for example, but for the sake of time today, we're going to focus just on the U.S. and Canada. So it's a similar process for both the U.S., for both the FCC and the ISED in Canada. The testing scope should include basically general emissions testing and intentional radiation testing. So your end product will likely require general emissions testing, so EMC and EMI test results. But the intentional radiation testing, the RF output, spurious emissions testing, and the like, can be leveraged from the modules FCC grants documents themselves, the test reports from Telit that we submit. So on the next slide here, you can see, so for FCC, your device will be considered an integrated device. So the two options you have is to reuse the module's FCC ID or to get a unique ID of your own. Most devices can reuse the module FCC ID, providing they meet the limitations on the Telit grant. So if that's true, we can provide a letter of permission for FCC that authorizes yourself to use the specific Telit modules documentation and reports that we file with the FCC and for your grant process. So this helps with a tremendous amount of testing and filing on your part. The only limitation is if you have co-located transmitters within 20 centimeters of the antenna or transmitter, you would not be able to use our Telit's FCC ID. If so, we recommend that you contact a TCB lab that's a certified facility to be able to run your certification for FCC. Okay, and then for ISED for Industry Canada, basically the same situation applies. There's two options to either reuse our certification or to get a unique ID yourself. Again, in most cases, we'll be able to provide you a letter of permission that authorizes you to use our FCC ID and documentation, or our ISED documentation for this Industry Canada certification. Okay, so that's a brief look at the regulatory testing required for the US and Canada that you should plan for. So next, let's look at industrial approvals. And at this point, I'll hand this off to Melissa Hernandez.
Thank you, Brad. We will go through, let me just do a little quick introduction. So my name is Melissa Hernandez. I have been here with Telit for about 5 years, and so we'll continue on with the industrial standards, or the industrial approvals. Okay, so we will continue to dive into understanding the basics with the industry standards. As Brad mentioned, regulatory is a requirement before we can continue with the industrial approvals. The industrial approvals are carrier-driven requirements that ensure that the device properly conforms to the required 3GPP standards. OTA, RF performance, radiated spurious emissions, and SIM testing are things that will be performed for approvals. So let's step through the PTCRB and GCF, as these are the main industrial approvals for the major carriers. By using the Telit PTCRB certified module, your device is classified as an integrated device. So this can save you time and money on development and testing cost. Listed below are devices that are classified as an integrated device by PTCRB. So notice that we have variant submissions is child of parent. That can be classified as an integrated device. Or the variant cannot be a variant of a variant. So with an example, we have LN920 versus an LE910C1. So those two variants are very different. So that cannot be something that you use with the same variant. The LN920 versus the LE910C1 are two different variants. So those cannot use the same PTCRB. Maintenance releases are very common and occur during the life of a product. And in this case, PTCRB does not require an additional certification. In addition, there are several other things listed here. You will also notice that features added products, for instance, the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, do not require a round of certifications with PTCRB. And these are just a few of the items on the list. There are other ones here, but just to give you some examples, this is what PTCRB requires for your integrated device. Okay, we'll move on to the GCF, which is the Global Certification Form. This one is required by Verizon. No other carrier really uses this GCF, but the focus on functionality outside of the module, such as antenna, SIM, and the user interface, are things that we will be testing. Okay, so that's the basic information for GCF. Now we'll move on to the operators, understanding basics here for the MNO. The device is certified on the industrial side, so we can then move on to what we call MNO, which is the mobile network operators. So let's dig into the major carriers and what is required for each MNO. Let's start with AT&T certification. You'll notice that we have listed a link to the IoT device website for your convenience. Here you will find links to the following. When you go to this website, AT&T IoT device catalog, you'll notice the AT&T approved device listing, also AT&T module catalog, and also the third-party partners and labs. Down below, as you want to get started to get your device certified, you'll see where you can go to the link Get Certified. And here you'll see where the primary source of the device certification information is obtained here. You do your onboarding the device into AT&T system. And then you'll learn about the trendy and device identification requirements, as well as the PTCRB certification and AT&T antenna performance limits on this page. So once you're onboarded with AT&T, you'll go to the AT&T.com/get-certified, and here you'll learn on what needs to happen with your device. So you'll use an AT&T approved module, which will be your Telit module. We usually have AT&T certified, so you'll see us on the list. The device must be based on LTE, LTE-M, or NB-IoT technologies. All devices can be trendy except a few like drones, non-Windows, laptops, and tablets, and factory-installed telematic control devices. So the leverage on synchronization with PTCRB data is used for most data entries. Once you have AT&T TA, you can immediately then also certify your PTCRB. And those things are all, we'll assume that AT&T checklist items are completed. So I guess best practices for when you're doing the AT&T certification, we've listed a few things. So antenna meets AT&T requirements is one of them. Get a PTCRB device identifier. Register for an onboarding account with AT&T/get certified, and then choose method for device identification. Okay. On to T-Mobile device certifications. Notice that the devices are usually NB-IoT, a 4G LTE, or a 5G device. And we've listed here how to get started. We'll validate the device in using one of T-Mobile's approved modules or chipsets. We'll also verify FCC certification with the device, receive PTCRB certification for the device, and then also, once you're done with those three items, AT&T, T-Mobile will certify you with a TA device. Off to your right, you'll see T-Mobile lab testing. These are just some examples of some of the things that will be tested at the T-Mobile lab. Okay, on to Verizon. Verizon certification process for the devices, we've listed the link here. So the primary actions are register and submit a NDA and documents for your device. Complete the device lockdown by reviewing an open access specifications and gather the required documents to ensure device is ready for testing at an authorized independent test lab. So with AT&T, you'll notice that they don't require you to actually test with the lab. They do trendy, and you can do those on your own. But with Verizon, they require either to test in their lab specifically, or you can actually do an independent test lab. Okay, and Verizon will upload your custom test campaign and select the test lab will execute the testing. After the final report is reviewed by the Verizon lab, internal lab, you will receive a certification letter to allow you to operate your device on the Verizon network. On the developer registration and executing NDA, we'll submit your company registration, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and sign a certification agreement. We kind of went through those things already, but just to kind of step through those things, we also need to attach an all pre-submission document, review and lockdown documents, and then testing, send devices to authorized test lab. Also, you'll see that FOTA is required. The developer to provide the FOTA update documentation on a test device. Completing contractual agreements, fulfilling CA and COA documents are required prior to device certification. The device ID upload and launch, loading device IDs into Verizon Device Management Database is also required. Okay, and then the next steps to the process is to gather the required documents to complete the DLD lockdown, and those would include device info, which is the FCC grant, the GCF grant, and the picture of your product. Then supporting documents would be the user guide, the quick reference, and the troubleshooting. And then the lab logistics, selection of lab, and the date for lab submission. And then lastly, on the device launch, your Verizon contact will upload the custom test campaign based on your submission. A final report will be sent to Verizon's internal lab for final confirmation that the device functionality meets Verizon access standards. As a final step, upload your unique device identifier to the Verizon database. And those will get you to the Verizon certification. Okay. All right, so now we can move to go-to-market strategies. Let's wrap this up with the summary and how everything comes together. So we reviewed over the testing and pre-certification support. Secondly, we went through the basics about the types of certifications you can expect with your project, regulatory, the industrial, and the M&O certifications. And then lastly, we will cover some go-to-market summary. Okay, and so here is a chart or a summary of the certification activities that we need to go to market. So one of them is take advantage of the Telit's FCC ISED IDs and test results for the majority of your regulatory and testing requirements. Also, using one of the Telit's PTCRB and certified modules allows you to classify your device as an integrated device. And then for the M&O testing requirements, please note the comments made earlier, the AT&T Trendy process while using a Telit approved module, making the process quick. Approved modules with Verizon and T-Mobile also helps reduce the test scope for the M&Os. Then we also have a list of the Canadian carriers. Here you'll see that the ISED is required. And then we have Rogers, Telus, and Bell, where they require you to have the certification on the module side. Bell is the only one that does not require the module to be certified, but your device does need to be certified with the carriers, which is Rogers, Telus, and Bell. Okay, and that's the end of our presentation, and I'll pass it over to Amanda to finish off.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks, Brad, for that great information. Now, before we get to the questions, I am going to drop a poll on your screen here. If you have any questions about today's presentation, or if you'd like to have one of our experts contact you directly, please just respond here on the poll, and we'll be sure to have someone reach out to you. We do have time for just a few questions here, and there is still time to ask a question, so please feel free to submit it using the box there on your screen. We'll do our best to cover it in the time that we've got left here. And guys, we've gotten a couple of questions, so I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. The first one we have here, how do we initiate pre-certification testing?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. Please, yeah, the best way is to really contact your Telit regional sales director that you've been working with. If you don't know that person, or if you don't have access to them, we recommend writing a request to tsamericas@telit.com. And from that, we will contact you with further details on how to start that process. That's ts-americas@telit.com.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Brad. And we also direct people to the Contact Us page on telit.com as well. We'll be sure to route you to the right people. Next question we've got here, how important is it to find a partner that can support adding cellular and GNSS into the device design? Our application needs both.
Yes, I can answer that one. It is very important that is noted in the webinar. There are many steps in understanding the industry requirements, of course, the pre-certifications and certifications as well. So we have a Telit website that has resources and partners. So the website that you can go to is https://www.telit.com/partners, and you can find that information at this link.
Perfect, thank you. And maybe last question we'll take here. What testing is required if my device needs FirstNet approval?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, there's additional testing required beyond the AT&T trendy testing if your device is going to support FirstNet. If that's the case, please, we would reference you to the AT&T link on the IoT devices AT&T site under FirstNet. So that testing will involve some additional tests involving lab testing, some field testing, and security validation. And depending on the capabilities of your device, if you support critical applications, there will probably be some additional testing that will be needed. So that's a really good point. If your device does support FirstNet, be sure you plan for some additional tests beyond the normal AT&T trendy testing. That's a good question.
Yep, thanks, Brad.
All right,
guys, I think
thank you, Amanda.
All the time that we have got for today. Audience, please be sure to check your inboxes in the coming days for that replay link. Again, these slides are available in the resources section here on your screen. Brad, Melissa, thank you so much for the presentation today, and thank you everyone who joined us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.